Hi, everybody. Let me put the light on. Okay. All right, everybody. This is 1,184 days today since Richard disappeared, was code redded, murdered, absolutely murdered. And his case began before July 2020, um, long before that. And I want to always stress that because the code red started long before July 2020. It was a process. It was a process because he was a whistleblower, and they did not want his testimony to be credible, that his witness would be credible. They didn't want that. And so this is important for everyone to know that this was an internal decision, because what he was whistleblowing had to do with what was going on Fort Bliss. And there's no other explanation for the code red. And Lalani Hart is the person, the individual that admitted that this was a code red. And looking at all of the evidence, looking at the hard evidence, the circumstantial evidence, the irregularities, the July 9th, 2020 decision to dismiss, the Gomar that was a soup sandwich, a real mess, making it permanent, making a soup sandwich permanent, um, is a real mess. So everything was very stinky, and then the chaptering was also very confusing to us. When because of course they're going to chapter when they give a permanent Gomar, but then what they did is they gave Richard a feel great Article 15 with maximum punishment and then some. And that didn't make sense to us because you're just chaptering. You've just destroyed the soldier's career in the military, and you're chaptering him out, and now you're going to give him a feel great Article 15 with maximum punishment. That means taking 3 ranks away from him, 45 days of extra duty, wearing full battle gear, which is not allowed. Um, and even, that was COVID time, so a COVID mask. And then, of course, 60 days of restriction. I mean, the max punishment that they could give him, and that still wasn't enough for them. They had to add on more punishment, the 50% of his pay for 2 months. So, and that was coming after a chaptering. And, Article 15s are not meant to take out a soldier, right? They're meant to restore a soldier. And this was clearly a waterless waterboarding starting in probably before, but let's just be kind or be conservative and say starting in January of 2020, this was a waterless waterboarding, and it culminated to his murder. And today we have groundbreaking ground. Woo! Can you feel it? Can you feel it? It's shaking. The ground is shaking, and the case it's cracked because of 3905 Bliss Avenue, 3705 Bliss Avenue, 3400 Van Buren, the arms room, the Fort Bliss Arms Room, the Fort Bliss CID Arms Room, the Tactical Move Storage Unit, the many suspects that are on our list now that we have been given that are in conjunction with many of these employees of Fort Bliss or in contract conjunction with Fort Bliss. And, so they had a lot of skin in the game. And, you know, this was Richard threatened their criminal activities, their lucrative criminal activities. And, years ago I took a lesson, and it economic lesson, and that's how I learned about iPencil. And if you haven't, and I haven't posted it for a while, if you haven't watched iPencil, you can find it on YouTube, and it is uh, a 3 minute, maybe it's 7 minutes long, uh, lesson on economics that you will never forget. At least I never forgot it. It really is impacting. And um, there's three ways to become rich, right? Three ways to get money. Three ways to get money. You either earn it, you inherit it, or you steal it. And what we have here is stealing it in high stakes. And they're stealing it from the institutions, from the taxpayers that fund the institutions, and it's become a gravy train. And the problem is that all of that criminality is hurting Fort Bliss. It's hurting the El Paso community, so much so that you know, who wants to go into the military, because you're not going to get supported. Your leadership is too interested in getting their next star than to care for their soldiers, um, which, there's many of these 44 four-star generals and admirals that clearly we have information on that they need to be stripped from their privileges, from our beautiful uniforms, because of the harm that they have done. Um, but I want to focus on Fort Bliss and El Paso, because this is where the earthquake is hitting right now. We, breaking news, and I have so much breaking news from yesterday that I posted up this morning, which, you know, um, the adrenaline, the adrenaline from posting that up is just unbelievable. Uh, because you have to be on it. You have to be trying to process all this information that's coming in, because every bit of it is so important. And um, and if Team Farm Richard Halliday, we don't want to miss anything, because everything's so important in getting justice, getting closure for Richard. And so this breaking news today, I don't it's so big, I don't want it to overshadow what we posted this morning, but it will overshadow it. It's just that big, because it's in black and white. We have black and white written confirmation that Special Agent Marlon Soto, and this is not anything new for people that have been watching. Matter of fact, I need to get on Facebook. And before I say this, make sure that I'm on, because anyone that has been following for a long time seems that I'm on. Okay, let me turn that down. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anissy. I see you, praying for you, Mrs. Halliday, and praying for justice for Richard. Thank you so much. Thank you, Danielle, praying for you and your family. Thank you, and for the love too. Sharon Ann Fields Edwards. Lord, please hear our prayers for Richard Halliday and his family. Let there be peace and justice brought to this family. Keep your arms around his mother and family, and continue to give guidance and strength, and let the truth come through. Thank you, God, for all of your love. Amen. 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 Um, Thank you so much, Sharon. Um, and we're feeling God's love every day in this case. And we have come to the conclusion, especially today, every day, but especially today, that, it's all in God's timing and it hasn't gotten closure yet because God still wants to reveal things and he wants to expose things. And today is a huge exposure of Special Agent Marlon Soto and the evil that he did to our son, the evil that he did to this case, the evil that he has done to Fort Bliss, the evil that he has done to the El Paso community and the wider community. So, and what did he do? He absolutely misrepresented and interfered, and we have it in black and white. And get this. He, in black and white, we have it that he told law enforcement community that the leaks that Tavita Nusa was guilty of what were leaks not to Lalani Hart, but to the Halliday family. We have that in black and white. That he told the law enforcement community that don't worry about Tavita Nusa, Special Agent Tavita Nusa, in his CID office under his care, under his leadership, because he was not leaking to Lalani Hart, but leaking to the Halliday family. And number one, that wouldn't be a leak. That wouldn't be a leak. And thank God, thank you, God, that I have been doing this live stream every day, right? Every day for a long time, twice a day, because I have it on live stream. I have it recorded. How I was saying, why is Lalani Hart getting the leaks, getting access to our son's file, and we're not getting it, right? I have it over and over and over again. And, and I think that the law enforcement should have called us and said, hey, are you getting information? Because if we were getting those leaks, we would absolutely have known a lot of this much, much sooner because we know now the conspiracy between Danae and Belen, Danae's family, the Katzen family, the Garcias, the Gonzalez, the conspiracies with the Ortegas, the Rochas, um, the Soto. We know that, that there was this relationship between Marlon Soto and Lalani Hart because at every turn he was protecting her. So, all roads lead to her. And, it's very interesting. He had skin in the criminal gang, he had skin in the crime because of, and, that was just one example that we have in our written document that we got out of the many, many false information or withholding information to the law enforcement community. And so he was misleading people that could be helping us. He was misleading them about Richard, about the character of Richard, the smear campaign, and I really believe that it was the CID office that stood on that guard mount and gave that smear campaign of Richard to the military police on Fort Bliss. And the big issue here is that Marlon Soto is still there. From the last that we heard, he's still there and he's still allowed to have that CID access, to determine really important things about cases. And he should absolutely be stripped of his badge, absolutely indicted for his interference, his obstruction of justice in this case. And it's going to be interesting if if he is very close to Lalani Hart, and Miss Angela Kucherga is close to Lalani Hart, do they all know each other, right? That is the question. So these people are in this high stakes gang, and I don't want to call them a criminal syndicate. It sounds too fancy, because these are thugs. These are thugs. They're bullies. Um, uh, and they're a gang. They are absolutely a gang, and they prey. They're predators, and they prey on the community. They prey on Fort Bliss, on the military industrial complex. They learn the system, they take advantage of the system, and they learn how to illegally and legally. Uh, they're illegally stealing, but they have so many people in so many places because they are a gang, that they don't have to, they have everyone else covering for them, because everybody has skin in the game. And I'm talking about IG, I'm talking about the JAG, I'm talking about the chain of command, I'm talking about the CID, I'm talking about the VA, I'm talking about the DES and the chief of security of Fort Bliss, I'm talking about CYS. um, Even that, 85,000 unaccounted for minors, right? So Ann Ogle, absolutely, she is, to me, why hasn't she been arrested? And then, of course, the CPS there in charge of complaints for Fort Bliss, somebody there, of course, Park University, and then KTEP and Bob Moore's seems to be El Paso Matters, and and we also are now writing letters into UTEP because of what has happened in this case. And this is a gang, and now we have in writing, which is an earthquake, y'all, because we have it in black and white, in writing, his communications, Special Agent Marlon Soto's communications with the law enforcement community, um, that are uh, absolute falsehoods, Pinocchio to the X amount, and we have evidence to back that up. And so we're going to be very busy in the next few days responding to this new evidence that we have received. And that's why they don't want to give us what we are allowed to have, and that is the open records, right? They don't want to give us the open records, the FOIAs for the Child Protective Service complaints that Richard made. They don't want to give us the open records for the JAG office for Judge Robert Shook and everything that he did in this case, because they just prolong it. And of course, the monies coming out of the office of the governor, Miss Amy Snoddy's office. And, so we're patient, and God is bringing in that information all the time, whether they like it or not, because the stars in their course fought against Sisera. You see, um, you cannot hide the truth. The truth will come up. The truth will reveal itself. And it's very, very clear, through just mishaps and pictures that come up and everything. The truth is right there in front of us. And so we're just being patient and letting the truth grow through this attempt to cover up the code red and murder of our son. And we absolutely do want justice for him. And, you know, just like Lalani Hart having an ongoing case, that is still open. It is still open. Um, and when you read about that case, it's, lying. You have agents putting complaints in that Lalani is lying to law enforcement authorities. And that is in 2022, July 11th, 2022. Um, so the statute of limitations has not been reached on that one. So we have to brace ourselves with this earthquake that's going on right now. It is, it, there's so many things happening because we have been endlessly working behind the scenes, trying to listen to everything that Team Farm Richard Halliday has given us and advice and what the authorities would let us do and what we were physically capable of doing, because we are human and we are in this day to day life, um, what we can possibly do. And, now the fruit is coming in. We're harvesting. Isn't it harvest time right now? We're harvesting all of that hard work that we have put in, and we're getting this information. And today was just groundbreaking. And I thought that 3905, 3705 Bliss Avenue was totally groundbreaking. I thought that Pearl Mercedes C Class with a Richard silhouette on it was absolutely groundbreaking. And they are, these are all fissures, and then, it's all going to come apart. I thought, well, we'll see the information coming in from Kachurga, but we absolutely know that she must have skin in the game like Marlon Soto. For her to be so sloppy, right? For her to be so sloppy and use Leilani Hart as a source and not even have a good story, you know? They didn't even have a good story. They had the most absurd, insane story in order to retaliate against a whistleblower, a key witness in our son's case, in order to obstruct justice in our son's case. Because why? Because why? What 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 have they done that they're trying to cover up? Because clearly, um, it, it's so obvious. It's so obvious because of um, how sloppy they are. And so, and it's coming out. Um, we're trying to figure out how the events occurred with the arms room, who went to the arms room, where was the incident that killed Richard, where, after the incident happened, where did they take him? From that area, we know that somewhere, and we think the processing was at, a certain address, and then he was taken to different places from there by different means, and even by plane. And so we have this plane, we have the tail wing number, we have the organization it's linked to, um, we have another um, aeronautical or institution that this is linked to. We also are trying to reach out to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints because of Bishop White having full knowledge of the character and the incident of Leilani Hart. Um, that is very, very important. We're also reaching out to the educational institutions, um, Park University, and also UTEP that's connected to Texas Tech. So, this is so convoluted sometimes. Well, it is convoluted all the time. And I'm trying to bring it together with Team Find Richard Halliday so everyone can understand it. And it's pretty simple. It's a criminal gang that did not want to be exposed. Richard didn't want to play their criminal gang with them. He did not want to look the other way. He I don't think he understood how infiltrated the gang was in our institutions in El Paso, how rooted they were in El Paso, in Fort Bliss, on Fort Bliss, and in our institutions. That when he went to the CID, when he went to the IG, when he went to the VA, when he went to Park University, when he went to Thomas Kane, the chief of security of Fort Bliss, that all those people were part of the gang, and they center themselves on Leilani Hart. It's very clear she's like the Captain Kirk. She's in the middle. She's in the driver's seat, and she even bragged that she ran CID, and so now we have it in writing, uh, proof that she was pretty right in that. Um, but that she used lies and false allegations in these institutions to retaliate against those that she didn't like, those that got in her way, those that got in the way of her business. And she uses that over and over and over again, that tactic to use her connections, her power as like this gang leader. And I'm not saying James Hart is not a gang leader. I mean, he has a pretty powerful position over there, um, at the VA, sitting on the health board and having access to soldiers and veterans, very sensitive files that they could, he could manipulate, he could train them. Leilani Hart has even written that in there, that they were training these soldiers in how to be disabled veterans. A lot of times that is to lie about your mental health. Say you're mentally ill, say this is how you can say you have PTSD, and then you can get more disability, or even 100% disability. And we know that Leilani Hart is 100% disabled because of just that mental illness. We know that even a judge in Hawaii deemed her to be mentally ill. And there's other witness statements that she's mentally ill. And, what does that mean? That she's just, up to no good, and is brazen with her criminal activities, and using the institutions of the United States to threaten, or and retaliate against those that want to expose her and don't want to play her Vanity Fair game. And so that's why she is a key suspect in Richard's case. We know for sure that she colluded and conspired with Angela Kacherga to retaliate against a key witness in our son's case. But what did she do to Richard? Because if he's CID intern, and he's part of the CID community, trying to uh, take law enforcement classes and everything, and a part of the Park University community, and she's there too, and she's trying to control things, and her son is there, being the platoon leader, being the platoon, and Richard's making complaints. um, she's trying to defend her criminal son, right? Seemingly criminal son, who is another key suspect in this case, and we've got all kinds of stuff there too. It's just it's unbelievable when you start reading all of this, uh, and she's goes crazy, absolutely, and uses the institution, her power with Marlon Soto, Special Agent Marlon Soto, her affair with Tavita Nusa, her very close connection with Thomas Kane, um, and of course, uh, all the other connections that she has to do a code red on Richard. And she's the one that, and her very close relationship with Major General Clem Coward. Okay, she know has known him for years and years, um, and for him to respond to Richard in that harsh of a way, and for Marlon Soto now in black and white, uh, defending Leilani Hart at every turn, to the point where he is ruining his career, committing crimes to do it to the law enforcement. So even his reputation is now it's irreparable, as far as law enforcement goes. He needs, yeah, it's I don't even want to say he needs to get a new job, because he needs far worse than that. But he needs to be held accountable for all the harm that he has done, because it's not just Richard's case. Okay, Leilani Hart has a history of hurting people constantly, consistently, severely, all the time. Okay, all the time. I think we've just, barely opened up the criminal case cauldron of Leilani Hart. She is full of criminal activity. And, their little hub was there on Bliss Street. It should be called Hell Street, right? Um, and of course, Van Buren. And those names are all going to come out with their sex cult, their prostitution, their weapon smuggling, with their narcotics trafficking, uh, human trafficking, child pornography, illegal child pornography, which I want to make it very clear that that is child torture. That's child torture. Okay? And there's 85,000 unaccounted for minors. Unaccounted for. Where are they? Right there from Fort Bliss. Okay? And who is in charge of their well being? Many people, but a main person is CYS Administrator Ann Ogle. And Ann Ogle works there as a professor at Park University, but she also works for Falcon Aerostar. I think it's called Falcon Aerostar. And, so that brings in a new element into the investigation. It brought in a new element into the investigation. And when you look deeper into that, it brings in other people. It starts making sense of why, it's such a hot thing to be a pilot, right? It's such a good thing to be a pilot. Uh, when you see the connections, uh, it all is coming together and it all makes sense. And they used every power they had to cover this up, from tactical move storage units, which we believe, we need clarification on this, that was what was at kilometer 29. Those pictures are pretty revealing. And, of course, it might be in El Paso too. If you know, call 941-677-0060. We'd like answers on the tactical move storage unit. And, it's going to come out. It's going to come out. Might as well help out as you can, because we have institutional help now. So they're letting us know, and they're being careful about it, which is the right thing to do, to be careful. But the institutional help is, it's all coming out. What is going on in that arms room? What is going on Bliss Street, Bliss Avenue? What's going on Van Buren Avenue? And how these people are related with their businesses, with um, their deals, or their contract deals, or their new schemes that have to do with Park University. Um, seemingly, because you've got Thomas working in his job and then at Park University, and Ogle working her job, and others and at Park University. You have the IG Laura, who, you can please, Laura, let us know, because seemingly you work there at IG and also with Park University. Um, and CPS, Claudia, working at CPS, and then right there at Park University. And, and then we have Thomas Hoffman, who is connected to the Bliss Avenue properties, and also with this whole um, air, flight uh, industry, right? And then Park University. Um, Tanya Katzen, uh, also having these kind of connections. She's a big player, and then of course the Rochas being there too, and so it brings everyone together through Park University, through these businesses, through the institutions there on Fort Bliss. And Richard pulled on a string that would expose, when you make CPS complaints, when you make FBI complaints, when you go to the IG and you're rattling things, and you're like, hey, this is not right. You're not supposed to smuggle weapons and ammunition. You're not supposed to be making child pornography and selling it to soldiers. You're not supposed to be involved in human trafficking. You're not supposed to be involved. He said, it was so bad, Mom. It's so bad, Mom. I don't want to be an NCO. I don't want to go green to gold. And this is the problem. Now we are hurting as a military, aren't we? For our volunteer sons and daughters. They, you know, those that are in, um, have a lot of, they're not in a good situation, that's for sure, because if it's not one problem or another with all the failed issues going on, they're shorthanded, or they're bullied. They're bullied if they want to stay healthy their way. They're not allowed. They have to do it, you know, through, you know, our way or the highway. And it's like, wait a minute, why do we have a military? We're supposed to be defending the Constitution, our rights. Um, anyway, so people saw what they were doing. They saw the scam. They connected the dots to the business plans. They saw the small businesses being destroyed, literally being destroyed. And, we've just had enough. We've just had enough. And so with Richard, um, he saw destruction in Ireland during 2008, where the people didn't have jobs, especially young people didn't have jobs. Um, a lot of families had to move out to Abu Dhabi, to New Zealand, to Australia, to the Middle East countries, and live in these Irish little communities and build and, have a job, because there was no jobs in Ireland, and that was in 2008. He grew up in that situation, and then here he goes to El Paso, and he sees the danger, what they want to do to El Paso, and it's going to get to the point where they will just close down Fort Bliss. Now they had given Fort Bliss, this mission of the new national, or the new state park, right? The new state park, or um, anyway, Castner Range, and because they have no mission, and no one, you just see the problems, and he saw the problems, and he said something, because they tell you, if you see something, say something. And we have entrusted in our JAG that they will listen to the soldiers, because the soldiers, have very few recourses, for whatever they see, because they just can't get up and leave. And so we depend on the JAG, we depend on the IG, we depend on the CID, and now CID is totally crooked. And we have it in black and white that special agent in charge, Marlon Soto, was feeding us bad information, was withholding information, we know that, and was protecting Leilani Hart, and lying to law enforcement agencies about our son's case. And we have it in black and white. And he was colluding and conspiring with Special Agent Tavita Nusa to do it. And, we have these other names. It's a small office. They all know each other. And Richard was part of that office, and I believe Danae Katzen was part of that office. And I believe the Ortegas were right there in that circle of friends, because they're connected, they're family. Or are they not family? Maybe they're second cousins. Maybe they're connected just through the business plan. But they're connected with 3705 or 3905 Bliss Avenue. And even Van Buren. And as that paperwork comes forth, we have it. That was groundbreaking. And now we have more black and white, that not only did Tanya Katzen have a family connection with the Rochas, with the Ortegas, and is connected to Thomas Hoffman and Rosa Marie Valdez Garcia. This is not a lone case. This is connected with a much larger case that hurt El Paso, that hurt Fort Bliss, that hurt our country. So there's a lot at stake here. And we had no clue, and no clue it was such high stakes. But Richard saw it. And I don't know if he knew how big it was either, but he knew that there was a lot of wrongdoing, because he told me, it's so bad, Mom. It's so bad. I'll talk about anything, but not the Army. Ask me anything, but do not mention the Army. I don't want to talk about it. So, he saw something, he said something, he became a whistleblower, and they started waterboarding him through a code red, through entrusted tools that we have given the leadership, and they turned it as weapons against Richard, and it culminated in his murder and the cover up. Um, that's as clear as I can make it, and it's totally internal with some external people involved, and we're getting to the bottom of it. And it seems that all of these organizations, people would say at the beginning, when we would say, wait a minute, there's something organized going on here, and they would be like, how can all those agencies work together to cover up your son's case? It just couldn't happen. It did. It did. And it included a defense lawyer. I'm sorry, I have to correct myself because I called this lawyer a prosecutor. He's not a prosecutor, he's a defense attorney. And I just want to make sure that people understand they even have a defense attorney helping them out, okay? Helping them out, uh, which fine, fine, but not at the cost of Fort Bliss and El Paso and in crimes. You're supposed to have a defense um, person legitimately in court trying to help you. And so we need to get in court, but it seems like he's gonna need a defense attorney. I hope that's how it all comes out. But God's in control of this, and and when it comes out, we're all being rattled by this earthquake, and I'm not allowed to get emotional, but it has been a very emotional. Um, just think of writing those letters that we write. Um, it's not easy. We are grateful that we have help now in writing letters, but they are very difficult because you have to be so careful. Um, I did ask several to please sign the petition. We have, I think, 282 the last time I looked signatures for the active duty soldier there on Fort Bliss. That it's very, very important. He's very, very important in our son's case, more important than what I knew originally. He has information, and he needs protection. And that is also some breaking news. Uh, but he is reporting security issues also uh, on Fort Bliss, a breach of security, also problems in the JAG office. Of course, the 14-year-old girl that was living in the barracks being prostituted out numerous times a night. A life of hell, not Fort Bliss, Fort Hell, Fort Heart Hell. Um, and yeah, and allowed to do that. And that's not a singular case. Um, that's not a singular case. And nobody, let me tell you, the comments on that case was most revealing, because people were like, oh, yeah, that happens. All kinds of, even the dogs are living in the barracks. Um, you know, the barracks are flush with weapons, they're marketplaces for illegal drugs. Uh, you know, you got 14-year-old girls living in there being pimped out, prostituted out. So, it's really a failure of leadership, and there is this criminal, to have that kind of failure of leadership when you have a CID and an IG and a DES and a CYS administrator, and a Park University, because Park University has to ensure that their footprint on Fort Bliss is safe also. So you have the VA, so you have all of this on Fort Bliss, and they could not get away with breaking the standard operating procedure and all of these breaches in the barracks and on Fort Bliss, especially with all the weapons problems that are going on even in the arms room. I'm going to tell you that too. um, they couldn't do it unless they were all in a criminal cabal, right? They were all in a gang up to no good, because all that oversight. And so, when uh, Christine Warmoth, kind of f- flipped Senator Ted Cruz off, and she's like 23, 24 ranks lower than him, you're like, what's going on here? Who's really in control? When the IG can't do their job, and the CID, when they're all covering and lying and retaliating, using the institutions to weaponize it, retaliating against soldiers. And then the soldiers are like, I get what's going on, and I'm not joining. I'm getting out, right? I'm getting out. And then they get out and they say, do not join the army, because, you know, that's not where you want to be. They're weaponized against you. So it's a war zone. It's a war zone on Fort Bliss for the active duty service member. So yeah, with this black and white, groundbreaking news about special agent in charge, um, Marlon Soto. It's was nothing new for us. Okay. The breaking news is that the institutions are giving us the black and white written documents that prove it. That's the breaking news. We were in the meetings. We saw what he did. We saw, I talked to him for hours and hours on the phone. I absolutely knew that he was obstructing our son's case and protecting somebody. And then it was clear that that somebody was Leilani Hart. It was clear that even at that meeting, the stage task force find Richard Halliday meeting, we presented. It was so clear to us what was going on that we presented um, the case for the leaking of our son's file at that meeting, that it was being leaked. There was a leak. Um, so we have now in black and white what we knew and believed, what we knew was happening because of circumstantial evidence, because of irregularities. And so we're being confirmed on every, uh, it's probably going to be tweaked, but we're confirmed. And I can tell you this right now, 100% Richard was code reded, murdered. Murdered. Because we're at 1,184 days. Where is he? Where is he? Okay. So let me answer any of your questions now, Danielle. Thank you so much. Um, so does he have access to sanitize? um, well, we know that Richard's file was sanitized, wasn't it? It was sanitized this is the really big thing, of the key witness, the whistleblower. Because when we had the meeting with Quantico, they never heard of our key witness. And that was huge. So, yes, it had absolutely been sanitized. Now, big news yesterday, too, was that we received confirmation that CID and or the command on Fort Bliss never and I really wanted to talk about this for a minute. Never requested or ordered a probable cause affidavit for a warrant to search our house in Sarasota, Florida, um, by the Fugitive Apprehension Unit from the Sarasota Sheriff's Office and the assault team. That they didn't. And my husband has been working to get any indication that there's a warrant. There's no indication that there was a warrant. Okay. Of course, we cooperated. Nothing, we weren't hurt in the ordeal as far as physically hurt, but it was an act of intimidation 100%. We cooperated with them. And, this is September of 2020. We are in panic mode. Okay. I called it Hell Week. You could go back and you can look at any time I talked about it. It was panic mode because we knew even at that time that we were being lied to. We knew that we didn't have any help. They had thrown us out. They threw us out, y'all. Richard was in nobody's jurisdiction. And here comes the Fugitive Apprehension Assault Unit, go in full gear with weapons going around our house. Okay? We cooperated. Now, they didn't send out just a regular sheriff or a deputy, a sheriff's deputy, a regular one, because both of these assault deputies were deputies, but they were trained for the Fugitive Apprehension Unit. Okay? They were different. They were huge. They were geared up. All right? They are meant to intimidate. They are meant to apprehend a fugitive. That's what they're meant to do. And so it wasn't just a sheriff coming up and saying, hey, I heard your son's missing. No. They were there to show a force and to intimidate. It was very clear. And we cooperated. And they gave us some good information. Not the information they should have given us, like the warrant. Okay? So when we found that out, you have this blind trust with the government. Well, let me tell you, that is gone. And Team Find Richard Halliday, that is gone. This has been a huge education. Huge. And fortunately or unfortunately, it is documented. Totally, there is a documentary every day being filmed, just about every day being filmed on this. So this was really groundbreaking for the CID and or command, never having a record of ever requesting or ordering a probable cause affidavit or warrant to search our house. Yeah, so who did? But we don't have it. So, you can decipher just as well as we can what happened and what they did. Because we received confirmation, groundbreaking confirmation, that Richard, and there's so much groundbreaking information that sometimes it gets, you can't wrap your head around it. But we have confirmation that on the federal criminal database, Richard has never been on it. He's never been on it. That means they lied to us about designated him a deserter. Because the minute he would be designated a deserter, he would go into the federal criminal database. And he's never been there. They couldn't do it. And that's why they couldn't put a red Interpol on him. They had to put a yellow Interpol on him. And so, and that's why they could put a botched photo, a altered photo, which we believe is an overlay of Dallas Hart, to give to the Interpol. Because they had Richard's remains already. And he was deceased or died while missing. They tried numerous things. Information has come in that they tried numerous things. You know, it was a legal juggling game for them through this. So as the written information comes in, the hard evidence comes in, it clarifies, and, you know, it's not a shocker that Richard was not in the federal criminal database. We expected that because of a yellow Interpol. I kept saying it for months. Yellow Interpol, yellow Interpol. What does that mean? He's not a deserter. And now we have it confirmed. So all of, you know, the confirmation that Special Agent Marlon Soto was colluding and conspiring with this group of criminals. Special Agent Tavita Nusa lost his badge, right? He lost his badge, and, you know, Soto in this paperwork, he's saying, oh, because he was about to retire. No, no. He was, yeah. And that he was leaking to us? No. Sorry. I think he is now cornered. Um, and we haven't had a lot of time to go through all of this, so I'll be updating you. It's just like last night, getting all that information and trying to get it out to the public accurately. It's because the more social understanding, the more the public understands what has happened here, the better, the quicker that we can get. Because just like the petition to hedge around our active duty soldier that wants a congressional inquiry on all of this, that's very, very important. Please sign it and please campaign for more signatures. Let's get to 500, right? And then let's try to get even more. But let's, you know, meet that 500 goal. But just like that is so important, the hedge around Fort Bliss, the El Paso community, to say, look, we're sick and tired of them stealing from us these taxes, because El Paso pays high taxes. You know, take every case that Soto put his fingers on needs to be reevaluated, right? Every case, and I've said that before in the past. Every case. So he was up to no good, and now we have written black and white, and I'll tell you more and more after we read through it and try to decipher what it's saying, all of it. But we have written proof that he conspired, he colluded, He was up to no good. And that means if he's going to do that as a special agent in the CID, as a law enforcement agent, then that means he has corrupted. Uh, he, he has something to lose here. He's absolutely involved in some kind of criminal activity. He's got corrupted skin in the game. That's what this tells me. So, and don't forget that we just received confirmation that we had and have um, an FBI informant meddling in Team Farm Richard Halliday, right? So, yeah, that's huge news. Okay, let me see what else is going to answer all these. I wonder why she stated there are bullet holes in her wall. Did officers come to her house and take pictures? Did she need an alibi for the reason why the bullet holes are in her house? Is this another confession? I don't know. The forensics was so bad. There was no, I went through that with a fine tooth comb, of course. And my husband also, Team Fine Richard Halliday, we're all going through it. And it was so lame because let me tell you, you would have neighbors witness testimony to that. You would have called the police to that. You would have messages that you could show, screenshots that you can show. Um, there's none of that. This is an attempt. It's like uh, the retaliatory DUI that they pulled on Richard. That always stunk, and I and my husband, we made that very clear in all the meetings, and they were adamant that they had to keep that in. And so when the breaking news came that on July 9th, right, July 9th, 2020, they were already given the information, the agreement that that would be dismissed because there was nothing to it. I can't even imagine the panic they had with the Gomars, all of the retaliatory waterless waterboarding that they had dished out to Richard. I can't imagine the panic that they had because they were going to be held accountable, right? They were going to be held accountable and Richard would be restored. But that's not what happened because just a few days later, Richard was murdered. That's why the July 9th, 2020 is so important. It's very, very important date. And that happened before Richard was murdered. And so when we went there, they didn't tell us that. They withheld that information. They led us to believe that that was still an ongoing case. And they didn't dismiss it until September of 2021. Now that is pure evil. That is pure evil and deception and a manipulation against a family looking for their missing soldier son. And they knew all along. Whenever I said that's not punitive, that 0.04 BAC, that's not punitive. And I told them that DUI was so weak. It was there was nothing to it, and they didn't tell us um, Richard refused, right? We did know that he never pled guilty. We did know that. And so, but we didn't know that they had agreed to dismiss it on July 9th, 2020. July 9th, 2020. That is, so all of this news, this breaking news, and I don't want to be water down all of this news by calling it breaking news, right? Because it truly is breaking news. When you find out that one of the people on your team is a FBI informant, when you find out that the chain of command and those telling you, oh, we're looking for your son. We want to hear about your son. I remember Lieutenant General Donna Martin. Oh, bring some pictures. We're looking for your son. And all along they know that they're screwing you. You know, it's Lieutenant General Bernabe. Oh, because of you. No, you're sitting there um, being violent behind my back. Absolute violence. Because you're withholding information, you're manipulating information, you're you're absolute violence to your soldier, to the soldier's family. Uh, you want to kill them all over again. It's the unbelievable, talking on the phone with General Garrett, talking on the phone with General McConville, and they knew. And hours and hours and hours with Soto. Hours. And it's just like, you knew, and nothing I said, at the beginning, Rob would talk, and then he was like, you need to talk to him because, um, you know, there's only so much you can take, right? When you see the idiocy, and it's more than that. The cover up with the collusion, um, and we're talking about an active duty soldier, young, just had turned 21, right? And they have no loyalty, no integrity, no personal courage, no honor, no esprit de corps. They're and I'm talking about even McConville. These are dirty, dirty, evil, and I'm talking about Kacherga. I'm talking about the IG. I'm talking about Park. I'm talking about, you know, uh, and these institutions are there for very important reasons, and we have to expose them, and yeah, and so those that are working for those institutions that do want to do good, that they're not stifled, that they're not bullied, that they're not threatened. Their lives are not threatened then. Because I'm telling you, you work for some of these institutions and you go in like Richard, let me be a law enforcement officer. I want to be a private eye. And then your life is threatened because you have these evildoers, these wrongdoers that have taken over. So it's very important that we get the community behind us. There is, of course, a petition to get behind the soldier, the active duty soldier. And I think, there's a better life out there than to have to be bullied by these thieves, right? With these fancy business plans that depend on robbing us and manipulating the system. So, thank you so much. Thank you, Miss Halliday, for speaking and sharing your story with us. I'm glad you are shining a spotlight on Soto, CID, CYS, and others. God says, beware of the evil that shall come cloaked as sheep. Our babies should be safe as they step out to the calling to serve. Absolutely. And he was so excited. And there was nothing we could say to deter him from wanting to serve. He was so excited. My dad had a lot of esprit de corps. My dad and my husband, true patriots. And he was just so excited. And that's why he put his all in and was distinguished undergraduate for his cycle in basic training in AIT, and ready to go, ready to be disciplined, right? Ready to be mentored, ready to be part of a fighting force, ready to give his life for his country. And these people, even Jay Pollan, who's totally implicated in this, um, said, uh, with Richard, all I would have to do, I could just tell him and he would do it. He never gave us any trouble. He would do it without complaint. That was his words. Do it without complaint. And so, that's why we have a recruiting problem. We have a recruiting problem because our service members are in danger in several different ways. And those several different dangerous ways has gotten out, and people are like, okay, then I'm not joining. And it's not because of going to war. They're not afraid to go to war. Okay? They want justice and they want a recourse. They want oversight. And we need to give Senator Ted Cruz back his oversight. I mean, even he needs our support, our help, whether you like him or not. I'm just saying, a senator. It just happens to be Senator Ted Cruz that has oversight of Fort Bliss, or should. And the same thing with Representative Veronica Escobar. She should have oversight of Fort Bliss. And yet, this happened. There's more about that, but I would never vote for her. Let me tell you. Nope. No way. She needs to be replaced. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And so does, and this has nothing to do with Democrat or Republican, because William Timmons, our representative, he needs to be replaced. He's up to no good. And of course, Senator Graham, he just wants to bomb the world. That's all he wants to do. That might, he sure wants to bomb Iran. He probably has some stakes in all of these contractors, right? But it's just disgusting what they. I could tell stories and stories about their responses, their disgusting responses, and their lack of care for our volunteer sons and daughters that volunteer to serve in our military. And with Graham, it's really bad because he always wants to go to war, and yet he has been so disgusting in our son's case. Um, so disgusting. It is, so he needs to be replaced. But Veronica Escobar, she could have had this squared away at the beginning. She has that much power. She sits on that many, um, what do you call them? In Congress. Anyway, she could have done it all. And committees. Thank you. Committees. She could have done it. She's pretty disgusting too. Very disgusting. Exposing them to drive them to do their duty. Isn't that what the evildoers have said? Yeah, that's what Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe said with Vanessa Guillen case, is that they were driven to do what little they did for Vanessa Guillen. They had to be driven to do the little bit that they did do for her in her memory. And, I've been thinking a lot about that because they haven't honored her at all. Richard is the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier. And they haven't honored Vanessa Guillen and the changes that they said that they made. All, they had to be driven just to do lip service, right? To just do lip service, they had to be driven. But they didn't do real action, because look at our son's case, and he is the Vanessa Guillen, the first CONUS DES-1 missing soldier under the new Vanessa Guillen flowchart. And Danielle has said it really well in her comments, and I've been saying it in with my husband in the letters that we have been writing, because we announce ourselves as we are the family of the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier. Absolutely. And yeah, Richard Halliday. Richard Halliday. So exposing them. Yep. So thank you all so much. Please share this information. I'm going to write it out if I have time. I'll translate it into Spanish. I was thinking about that also, that some of this information needs to be translated into Spanish because of the tactical move storage unit leads that we have gotten um, around about kilometer 29, and we have institutional help that will research that area again, research it. So that is something that we're working on, and uh, we're so transparent, aren't we? But there's a lot of things that we're working on behind the scenes, and so if you speak Spanish or you know how to translate the posts, God bless you. Please do it. Please do it. We need to reach out as wide as possible, um, and get as much support as we can to make the positive changes. One, to find Richard's remains, get accountability, and make the changes for the safety of our service members. And, make us a strong, a better country. We're a nation in decline, right? That's what they're saying. We're a nation in decline. Well, I'm not going to stand and let that happen. I want to rise up, right? I want to rise up, and I want to help as much as we can. And justice is the way we can do that. We need to establish justice. And as a Christian, that's really our duty, is to establish justice. So get those 10 commandments out. That's what we need to focus on. So thank you so much. God bless you, and we'll be back tomorrow, God willing.